Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tech Innovators Spotlight. I'm your host, Vrushali Soni, and today we are joined by a very special guest. We are going to talk about AI innovation that we are doing with one of our partners, Astronomer, with Microsoft. So, Julian, why don't you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of overview of Astronomer as well as your role?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Vrushali, first for having us on the podcast. I'm super excited to be here. My name's Julian LaNeve. I'm the CTO at a company called Astronomer. We're a Series C data infrastructure company that helps our customers write and run data pipelines at massive scale. And we've done so by taking this open source tool called Apache Airflow, which is the most popular orchestration tool there is. It was actually started by Airbnb about 10 years ago and adopted by the broader community very shortly afterwards. We work with companies of all sizes and all industries, which personally is my favorite thing about the job. It's anyone who needs to deal with data, which again today is every company out there.
Yeah. Totally. Thank you, Julian. And as part of your role, what's your core responsibility?
Yeah, so as CTO, I get the pleasure of spending as much time as possible with our customers, our community, folks like yourself, understanding where the broader market's going and how we can go play a role in that. Ultimately, I end up taking that feedback back into the company and use it to inform product strategy, especially with some of the bigger bets that we want to make. As an example, most recently we launched an observability product that helps our customers understand what's going on in their data ecosystem, their data platform. Because if you just have like one or two pipelines, you can build a very easy mental model of how all the data flows through an organization. But we have customers with tens of thousands of pipelines built by hundreds of teams, and so helping them understand where data is being collected from, how it's being used, where it's being delivered to, is something that we feel like we have a natural ability to do. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I get to spend time with our customers, with the community, understanding where the market's going, and where we can play a role. And then I work with our products and engineering team, of course, to go figure out how to build product to address where the market's going.
That's amazing. And I got to tell you, when I talk to our common customers as well as internally to kind of rally around resources, their faces light up when they hear about Astronomer. So props to you, to the entire team, because that's definitely something that you're very well established in terms of not just the market, but also the value that you bring to the customers and how much they see the quality in this. So that's fantastic. You were talking about observability. And I think you're talking about Astro Observe, right? So why don't you give our audience a little bit of overview of Astro, Airflow, as well as Astro Observe?
Yeah. I guess to start, maybe I'll talk about Airflow, the open source tool that we work with. So I mentioned it was built around 10 years ago today. We actually just celebrated the 10-year anniversary a couple months ago.
Wow.
By Airbnb. And, Airbnb looked at all the data engineering tools out there at the time, and everything was very drag and drop configuration based, which is great if you want to go fast and build simple use cases. As I'm sure you can imagine, Airbnb did not have simple data use cases. And so they decided to first build their own internal tool that they called Airflow. That's where the name comes from. And, it was really the first tool that kind of popularized data pipelines as code. It was written in Python, which meant that most folks who are working in data already know Python and they can pick up the tool very easily. About a year or so after Airbnb built it internally, they realized they were onto something, that the broader community had a need for this. And so they open sourced the project, and it was eventually adopted by the Apache Software Foundation, the same place that Spark and Kafka are other popular data engineering tools. And at Astronomer, we've been working with Airflow for 6 or 7 years at this point. It's funny, we actually started building out a separate product in the early days, and we used Airflow internally to go power that product. And it got to a point where our customers were more interested in how we were running Airflow at scale than they were in the product that we were building. And so that was kind of a reckoning moment for us where we realized, Airflow is going to grow to be this very popular tool, and it's a distributed system, so it can be tricky to run on your own. So in the same way that like Databricks has adopted the Spark project and turned it into an enterprise-ready platform for their customers, or Confluent's done with Kafka, we're doing the same thing with Airflow. Like I mentioned, we've been at it for 6 or 7 years at this point, and a couple years ago, we came out with our fully hosted commercial platform for Airflow, where someone can come in, start a free trial, click a button, and get immediate access to Airflow. We take care of all of the infrastructure and all of the configuration that needs to happen. And we can do that for you whether you want one deployment or thousands of deployments at any scale. So for the last 6 or 7 years, our focus has really been around building the most reliable Airflow service in the market. And I'd say largely we've accomplished that goal. We have a ton of critical use cases now running on the platform, whether that's regulatory reports that get sent out in a very time-sensitive manner, or ML models that directly affect, customer revenue for like ad companies. And so it's really a pleasure to work with all of these customers. And like I mentioned in my role, part of my responsibility here is to go spend time with those customers and understand the problems that they're facing and go figure out how to fix them. And over the last year or two, as the use cases have become even more critical, as the data has become more customer facing, observability and data quality becomes a really, really big challenge, especially at scale where you do have lots of teams that have dependencies on each other's work. It's the data space, so things naturally go wrong from time to time as data gets updated or changed. And so helping our customers first understand like the output of their data platform, right? You write a bunch of pipelines, but those are really just an implementation detail to get some output, whether that's a data set or a report or an ML model. Helping them understand that output and then the reliability of that output, most crucially, because just being able to identify the output is usually not enough. And so we rolled out a product about a month and a half ago now that we're calling Astro Observe, where we can take any Airflow instance, no matter whether it's running on our platform or if someone just takes the open source project and runs it on their own, hook it up to our observability backend and give them that experience designed around the reliability of the data that comes out of Airflow. And we've gotten a ton of great feedback about it so far. It really, I think, helps our customers and our community understand the data products, we call them, that they're delivering through Airflow, and help them understand, again, the reliability and the quality of those things.
That's amazing. Let me go back to, and this is like tangent, but let me go back to what you said. Like early on, you were building something else and you were using Airflow, right? And then you quickly pivoted. For a company like Microsoft, probably the time frame would be different than a digital native like yours. Like give me like, I'm very curious to know like how quick was that switch?
Yeah, it's a great question. It definitely happened over time to start, but as soon as I think we realized we were onto the whole Airflow thing, we very heavily leaned into it. We were building a clickstream product, and the thesis at the time was like, if you want to send events about how your users are interacting with your website to like Facebook ads and Google Analytics and Twitter ads, you have to do all that instrumentation client side in the user's browser. That means every time they click a button, you're sending like 6 events to 6 different places, which can be tough to manage and slows down the website and the user experience. And so what we said is, actually, if you send them to us, we'll give you a UI where you can say where you want it to go at the end of the day. Now, naturally, that's a ton of data that we had to process, and Airflow was just getting popular at the time, so we decided to start using it. We just by nature of kind of the selling process and talking to customers, they had lots of questions around how we did it at scale and how we offered certain guarantees around the reliability of that data. So, of course, we were more than happy to talk about our Airflow usage. And over time, like that conversation started happening more and more. And at a certain point, we spun up a separate product, which was managed Airflow, while still doing the first product. And then at a certain point in time, the Airflow community kept growing at a very, very massive pace. It's downloaded over like 30 million times a month now, which is, puts it really in the top couple Apache Software Foundation projects. And
Absolutely.
decided that we wanted to go all in on Airflow. We didn't want to distract ourselves with a second product. And it's been a very good choice for the business. And it means that, we get to work with the most popular data engineering project there is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, fantastic choice for sure. Thank you for walking me through that. And you highlighted a few times now about the importance of data, right? And as we look at the future, not even future, AI is here. And we know how much important data is to get AI right. And we keep hearing like AI is ready and we all are ready, but data isn't. Like, help me understand how these two products, so Astro and Astro Observe, help our customers leverage those two and help with their AI use cases.
It's a really great question. To your point, like data has only increased in criticality over time. A couple years ago, it was all about how can I go build a dashboard that helps me run the business more efficiently or make decisions more effectively because I want to build, data-driven decisions. And then it's kind of changed over the last couple of years to where most folks now are looking at data as a source of competitive differentiation because it's something that they have access to that no one else does. I think, like, to me, Netflix and Spotify are the canonical examples here, where they obviously have more access to data about how people are watching shows or listening to music than anyone else. And, the reason that I'm still a Spotify customer and Netflix customer is their recommendations are better than anyone else. For better, worse, for my free time, they do a very good job of recommending
Same
things.
here.
And, I think we're starting to see that more and more with Gen AI as well. To your point, everyone's saying the AI, the LLMs are there, the models are there, they're ready to be used. And we've seen a ton of evidence in that in the market. If you just look at like ChatGPT's explosive growth, right? Like, people love working with the chat interface. But, these models only have knowledge up until the day they were trained. And it's not like you're training a new foundational model every day. So at a certain point, you have to supplement those models with outside data, usually through a process that folks are calling retrieval augmented generation, where when you ask the LLM a question, first it goes to its knowledge source and says, let me go pull all the relevant documentation. And then effectively the LLM is just doing summarization if you have the right content. And, you want to make sure that the LLM has the most up-to-date knowledge, right? If we just take like an example use case that we have here at Astronomer, we put a Q&A, chatbot over all the documentation for Airflow and Astronomer because by nature of it being this large open source project, there's documentation everywhere. And getting answers to simple questions can sometimes be tricky. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine too, that documentation is constantly evolving. Right? Every time we release a new version of Airflow, every time there's a new question posted on something like Stack Overflow, we want to make sure that knowledge gets put into the knowledge base or the source of truth. And like doing that at scale is ultimately a data engineering problem at the end of the day, right? You have some data that's constantly getting updated. You want to build a data pipeline to feed that into your knowledge base. And you want to do that automatically, right? You want it to run every day or every hour, and you expect it to run without issues. These are like the types of use cases that we're seeing, especially with our most successful, I'd say, AI customers. We have seen this great like bottoms up adoption motion where the data teams that are familiar with the data that they have access to will go through intrinsic just like interest in LLMs, right? Because they're technologists at the end of the day. They start to think of use cases on their own. And those things end up working great because you have this reliable data, you have this great LLM, and when you put it together, like, that's how you build a real production AI application. On the flip side, I've seen folks start with a model and say, well, now let me go find data to supplement this with. You end up building like a nice prototype and it's a nice experiment, but the path to production gets so much more difficult if you don't come at it with
Yes.
the data engineering lens. And so that's where we see ourselves playing, is really that path to production for these Gen AI applications, where when you take that fundamental data engineering first approach to it, you solve all the production problems, right? The AI, the LLM is there. You just need to go feed it data reliably.
That's amazing, because I think when we see our customers, when I talk to my customers about AI use cases, this is sort of in the forefront, right? And then you amplify it with the global distribution. You see all the different languages, all the different barriers across other countries that you'll run into, right? So it kind of piles on top of one another in terms of how big the problem is and how big of a scale it is to solve for production. Because otherwise, these would die in prototype, right? We have seen, right?
Yeah.
It's like POC,
Yeah.
we did it. It's just too much, too many resources needed, so on and so forth. And so what I'm hearing is this helps you scale. This helps you go to production with the most efficient resources that you can allocate to it, right? Is that a fair way of saying it?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, the prototypes are a ton of fun to build, don't get me wrong. And the prototype usually works well. Then you end up spending so much time getting it to production that it ends up not being
Yes,
worth it. Like, ultimately, you don't get value out of it unless it goes to production, unless you can actually use it. So I think you're
exactly.
absolutely right there.
Yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, they all are here to earn revenue, right? So unless they go to production, I think it's very hard to tap into the market. So I completely agree. As you see, I'm very curious to get your thoughts and vision about, there is this big boom of AI, and every day we hear something new. And AGI and threats and this, that, and the other, insecurity, like so many things, right? From the government all the way to people like me. What's your vision, like, the future of AI, and how do you think Astronomer will play a role in that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what gets me excited about how folks are starting to adopt LLMs in their products is really just that it lowers the barrier to entry for a lot
Mm-hmm.
of folks. We end up working with data engineering teams that are fairly technical, right? They know SQL, they know Python, they know how to go build a data warehouse, they know how to model data. Um, and that's great, but data engineers are expensive, they're hard to find, and you really want to make them as productive as possible. It's all too common that like the data engineering team ends up fielding a bunch of ad hoc questions about the data, right? Like, my report's not up to date. Can you look into it? Oh, can you get me
Yeah.
revenue for the last 30 days broken out by customer? Like, that's super distracting for the data engineer. And I've
Yes.
seen a ton of like prototypes and early stage products that are trying to lower the barrier to entry for just interacting with the data platform. Because ultimately, I'd say a lot of companies are at a point now where they've solved what I like to call the data collection problem of, let's go get all the interesting data in the same place. And once it's there, we'll figure out ways to get value out of it, right? And
Yes.
then it becomes
Yes.
a problem of, you have all this data. What are all the ways that you can get value out of it, right? Sometimes it's reporting, sometimes it's analytical queries, sometimes it's building ML models. But like, the more you can do with the data, the better. And so the more folks that you have engaging with the data, the better. Now, my maybe somewhat contrarian take is that's good in the short term, right? Because you have more engagement, you get more value out of it. In the long term, though, if you have a bunch of folks who aren't familiar with data platforms contributing pipelines and potentially expensive queries and adding data, these data platforms aren't cheap to run at the end of the day. So I think there's
Absolutely.
also a very interesting opportunity from like a governance and code consolidation perspective over time, where you can start to identify like duplicate work automatically, right? Let's say you create an ARR table, and you and I don't talk that much, but we work at the same company. It's a very large company. I realize that I need an ARR table, and I don't know that you've already created one, so I go create my own. Well, now we have the same table getting created every day. We're paying for the storage, we're paying for the compute. And when you use AI to open up access to the data platform, that happens even more. So I think in the longer term, there's an even more interesting use case, especially in the data space, where you can use it to help track, the output of your data platform and how folks are using things, and where you have opportunities to just make things better instead of just always building net new use cases.
Yeah, and execute, right? Probably that's the
Right.
vision. It's like, can it
Yes.
go and execute those too? Like, yeah, I understand all these
Exactly.
beautiful insights, but can you take that action on my behalf?
Yes.
And I think that would be really cool to have Astronomer kind of play a role in that. Switching gears a little bit, help me understand how Microsoft is providing you that unique value prop as an ISV. What are the things that you really like and encourage like other peers of yours as well in terms of the partnership that Microsoft and Astronomer has?
Yeah, I think discoverability has been obviously very big for us. The fact that you can go search Airflow in the Azure UI and Astronomer comes up as the recommended way of running Airflow is really, really great, because Airflow at the end of the day is used somewhere between like 75 and 100,000 companies out there. And I imagine a big chunk of those are already Azure customers. They need access to data engineering capabilities, so they find this thing called Airflow and they go run it on their own. But scaling and running Airflow on your own can be pretty tricky. And at the end of the day, if all you're doing is running Airflow at scale, but not actually getting value out of it, like, you might as well not be running it. And so that's exactly why we created Astronomer. And Azure, I think, has done a great job of positioning themselves in like the context of the data platform space, right? Like the Fabric work that's been done is really great as a way of just unifying everything.
Yes.
And so the fact that there's now really a great better together story of use Azure for the data storage and the compute and the data transfer, and you go put Astro on top of it to help you manage all of those things, especially as you scale. Is really, really nice. And I don't have to mention this, but the people that we work with are also incredible. We feel like we get a ton of support. So it's been a really great partnership for us.
That's fantastic. So tell me, like, what about the sellers? Like, are there certain things, certain words, if they hear those, it's like, okay, I have to go talk to Astronomer team because this use case fits right into Astronomer's portfolio? What would be those?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I want to say data, but I think that's a little bit too general. But like ultimately, anytime you're dealing with data at scale and that data is constantly changing, you need something that looks like orchestration. And orchestration is also like not really what you want to ever change, because it touches so many parts of the data stack that swapping out your orchestration tool is a lot harder than trying out a new database or trying out a new compute tool. And so, that's part of the reason for Airflow's kind of explosive popularity over time is, people want to go with the standard. They want to go with where there's a very big talent pool and there's a ton of reliability and community and kind of ecosystem built into it. For sure, anytime someone's talking about orchestration or data pipelines or ETL, like that is our bread and butter. But again, really anything to do with data, you need something that looks like orchestration.
Okay, data orchestration. As soon as anybody hears that, it's like, okay, we need to call Julian. No, I'm kidding.
That's right.
We need to call somebody from Astronomer. Yeah, absolutely. This has been fantastic conversation. If our audience wants to learn more about Astronomer, where should they go? Where should they go?
Yeah, I'd say, definitely check out our website at astronomer.io. We also have like a bunch of social media pages. What we also have is a free trial that folks can now sign up for. We give like a couple $100 in credits and a couple weeks access to the platform, which is really, I believe the best way to try Airflow. And that's what you get at the end of the day when you come to Astronomer.
That's fantastic. We'll link all of those resources and assets as part of our logout. But thank you so much, Julian. Any last words to our audience before we kind of take a wrap, or I don't know. I'm confused.
Yeah, I mean,
now.
I think
Wrap it up.
to the point of the conversation today, I think like data is becoming so critical these days, whether you're feeding data back to users or building ML models or building Gen AI applications. And it's, we feel like we've been in a very fortunate position to kind of be at the center of all of that, helping move the data around and understand where it's going. So I'm super excited for the future of AI, of course, but more specifically, the future of how data plays a role in that, because that's what makes the difference at the end of the day.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Julian. Appreciate the time. And thank you, everybody, for listening and dialing in. See you next time. Thanks for listening to the Tech Innovators Spotlight podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Want to learn more about the AI innovations discussed? Visit techinnovatorsspotlight.com for more resources and insights from Microsoft and our technology partners. Stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to uncover the stories that are shaping the future of AI.